All right, guys and ladies. So I have a master's in geopolitical war history of the 20th century. So it's one of those things they tell kids now, like going to college is pointless. And we'll get there in a second. So yes, I have a master's that I've never used because I love history. But what it taught me and what I do today, fighting in education, I know that God built me for this plan. So in education policy, if you think of it as a theater of war, World War II had how many? 4. There's about 18. And everybody's playing whack-a-mole. Is that we have no air support, ground support, especially no boots on the ground. We have no war plan, generals, nothing. People will get, and it's no disrespect, Dr. Fury and I rode up here together. Kimberly, I feel honored to be sandwiched between two of the most badass women I would be glad to go to war with. But because people think that we do this we were laughing on the way up here for relevance. And I was like, I have a 6-year-old and a 13-year-old. You think that I go broke traveling the state for free, educating people because I want to be relevant? But they don't want their illusion destroyed. But I'm so sorry, it's that time. Because in education policy, we are at the final solution. And our governor is the Manchurian governor. And I'm not just saying that. I have the proof that can back it up all day long. And if you don't wake up to it, the delusion that there's actually a party to the right or a party to the left, our children are done on so many levels. Oh, but first, I'm going to be your teacher for a moment. Everybody has to get up if you have a pen, and I need you to do a mental health check-in. I'm good, I'm okay, I'm meh, I'm struggling. I may need a check-in. I'm having a hard time. I'm in a dark place. Everybody up. This may seem funny, but this is what our 6- and 7-year-olds are going through without you knowing it. Everybody get the point without actually going up there? We have mental health. If you look up the family life standards of learning, kindergarten, first thing, mental health. Health standards of learning, mental health. We have social emotional learning, okay? There are behavior screeners being collected on children. You can sit down. You don't really have to do it unless you want to. And then this past session, what did they do? Minus one female senator in my division in Chesterfield. A bipartisan unanimous for more mental health. It is called the self-licking lollipop. They are not mentally ill because of COVID. It is because parents have had no idea what they've been teaching your children, my child. I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you the prefrontal cortex doesn't begin, which is reasoning, doesn't begin to develop until adolescence, and it's not even fully developed into your mid-20s. So the rise in suicide. The next time I'm keeping a list because everyone will sit at a banquet of consequences when I'm done with them. You cannot teach children because they also pass, children now K through 12, suicide badges with a hotline number on it. Another bipartisan unanimous. Giving a kindergartner a suicide hotline with unfettered access is that it's like the Hegelian dialect. There's a problem that we created, but we're going to give the solution. Is that we are doubling down, we are killing these children. Talk about suicide with a 9-year-old. Parents never know about it. Drugs, my child, and teaching her all about opiates, then sending her home and having her find them in my house. All of these dead children. They're the mentally ill children. Yeah, they are because you made them that way. We have volume. Do we have volume? Don't worry about it. Anyway, this was so, I don't know if you guys have seen The Lost Battalion, but this is just a clip from it. Oh, it's got,
You're surrounded. You have no chance for relief. Every night you send out patrols, and every night you kill them. You keep the cries of your wounded lieutenant. Do something so.
Maybe for you, my guys are different.
What do you mean?
What you're up against, Major, is a bunch of Nick, Polak, Dago, and Jew-boy gangsters from New York City. I'll never surrender. Never.
and so that was in the Argonne Forest. And that is how I wake up every day. I will never surrender. And so I think of I had one grandfather at Normandy, one grandfather at Iwo Jima. And I don't know if it's their spirits in me, or some people have called me George Washington, some people call me Sam Adams. I don't know who I am, but I love this country. And I do not pledge allegiance to the Republican Party. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America. And there is absolutely nothing going on in education that is constitutional or American. One of my favorite phrases, my prayer is that when I die, all of hell will rejoice that I am out of the fight. How did one mother get put on a list, blackballed by the governor for legislation sponsorship? Because I'm on the target. They would not care if I was just out here talking and I didn't matter. This has been done before. Everything about this. The Bolsheviks, the hypersexualization of children to the extent it causes psychological harm. Hitler mobilized and disciplined an entire generation of German youth in the spirit of National Socialism to lose their ties to the church, the family, the past, and to inculcate them in the ideal that the state was everything and the individual nothing. They are teaching nothing but collectivism. The history standards of learning, page 1, kindergarten. It's not just sharing anymore. It's sharing for the collective well-being. Nazism, socialism, fascism, what do they all have in common? Collectivism. You will have nothing and you will love it. Mao Zedong. Problem is, we're less than 300 years old. They don't have to come in and murder everybody. They started doing it about 80 years ago, infiltrating slowly. And then all of a sudden, all of our morals are gone. To think that less than 300 years old in the history of the earth, in the world, that in 100 years, people will have forgotten who America was, is absolutely ignorant of people to think that we cannot be, not physically, but America is the freest nation in the world will be something else 100 years from now if we don't step up, because we are literally at the final solution, like teetering, because democracy can no longer be repeated. We don't even know what our freedoms actually are. For me to actually teach myself what my rights as a parent, I had to go learn and teach myself that it is not 1-240.1. If they took that one line out, would parents think that they didn't have rights? It's in the first, the second, the third, the 9th, the 10th, the 14th Amendment. Not only that, but it is a God-given right. It is a natural right. But if parents took that line out, most of them would think they didn't have rights anymore. Communism and sanctioned pedophilia. The ruthless sexualization of children is a critical component of a broader plan to create a gender-fluid society that normalizes alphabet city sexuality and downplays heteronormativity. Who here has heard about heteronormativity? Have you ever been bashed because of it? Like, because we raised our children with males and females who may have kissed on TV, we're the groomers. Not kidding. you can laugh, but it's like when you're called alt-right because you're an actual constitutional conservative by people who are right of center, maybe a little bit, after the primaries, cheering people along. That means white supremacists. So our own people are calling, we're alt-right because we believe in everything this nation was founded on. But who, all of those radicals, dictators, you know who that man is? Dewey. You need to know who Dewey is. John Dewey, where did he learn all this stuff from? That includes Marx and Hegel. Dewey. We'll get to that later. Dewey believed that American public schools could be transformed to resemble the Soviet ones. Summing up his impressions, Dewey suggested that the most instructive way to view events in Russia was a great national experiment, American experiment, if y'all have heard that, whose outcome was still in doubt. Like all experiments, the Soviet one involved continuous adjustments, risks, inconveniences, and uncertainties. Because of this, Dewey was frank to admit that for selfish reasons, I prefer seeing it tried in Russia than my own country. But then he did anyway. And this isn't, we're going to get to why Dewey is so important. So, another great one. I am also a grunt wife. My husband did 4 pumps in Afghanistan. So if I'm surrounded with no hope of surviving, my last orders are to give them hell and take them with me. This is in Henrico.
Person with a microphone who will run around and help us. Here we go. So why don't we just start here?
Here, may help.
Here, I'll hand it to him. I got it. Thank you. I'm full service. Thank you. And by the way, I take notes. And so if my head's down, it's not that I'm not listening. I'm actually listening intently because I try very hard to go back in the evening and reflect on what we spoke about.
Governor Youngkin, it's nice to see you again. I haven't seen you since the Women for Youngkin Christmas party. I had the We Did It Spirit in the Sky shirt on. My name's Craft Taydus. I am the co-founder of Virginians for Children's First. A lot of you know me in this room. Some of you might have opinions, but when it comes to our children, both parties are failing. And what if parents matter, then you would bring them back into the equation by acknowledging Virginia law and federal law. And this, I wrote legislation on that 5 to 6 delegates carried, Senator Reeves, Senator Chase, on education transparency. It never survived the Senate Sub-Education Committee. And it requires, at a minimum, school boards must notify parents of their right to review their child's curriculum, their right to opt out of data, that would be FERPA, it's also codified in Virginia, their right under COPA, that under 13, that you have to be notified to remove your child from all data collection. The Virginia Consumer Data Protection Act is currently not only an enforcement, it is enacted, and nobody's doing anything about it, which would require opt-in for children under 13 for data collection. There are so many laws regarding counseling. They're giving so much counseling to our children without parents ever knowing. My 11-year-old came home talking about she had generalized anxiety disorder. She was suicidal. I went into her Chromebook and found out what had been taught to her. So what is age appropriate? We talk about, I'm a recovering addict. I've been clean 15 years. It's part of my story. I can tell you that teaching 11-year-olds about opiates with pictures of how to use them, giving them the names of the opiates, with foil and a pipe to smoke in Chesterfield County, put into all 12 middle schools, and then sending her home with an assignment asking her what's in her home, to go online, you want to talk about internet safety, encouraging them to go online, find what's in it, what the picture of the pill, and post it online. These are the assignments given to our children, and then when you go to your school board and say, I'd like to see my child's curriculum. No, ma'am, school board attorney says to me, you have to FOIA that. No, sir, I do not. It's called the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment. That's federal law. It's also codified in Virginia. Is that we talk about parents matter. Parents don't even know they matter because they don't know the law, because school boards refuse to acknowledge it. And so Senator Reeves with the Senate, and I'm wrapping up, Senator Reeves with the Sub-Ed Committee, Senator Donovan, you were there, agreed with that a letter would go to the Board of Education to audit every school board, every division, that they were following the law. The letter has not been sent. I cannot get Senator Reeves to send the letter. An audit needs to be done to make sure, because you all take an oath of office to not violate the Constitution of Virginia or the Constitution of the United States. Are we doing that? Are we bringing parents to the table, or are we continuing to exclude them, is the question we all need to ask.
Thank you. Thank you.
Virginia also needs to be the best place to learn. So everything that we do in the next 4 years in the Youngkin administration will be guided by our North Star to prepare every single learner for success in life, in our economy, our democracy, and in our communities. Everything. Everything we do in education will be shaped by this goal. And how will we know we'll be successful in the long term? We have 3 benchmarks we're going to use. 1, graduates of Virginia education institutions will be hired into family wage supporting jobs, and they'll be actively engaged and productively engaged in civic life. 2, companies will be attracted to, remain in, and grow in the Commonwealth due to the quality of the talent pool. And 3, the Virginia economy will grow. One of the most shocking parts about my introduction into this job is the reaction that the Commonwealth, so many people in the Commonwealth have had to the governor's goal.
Okay, how much of that was actually about, even the first one, every child will graduate with a family supporting wage?
To become
Because, so here, projects funded by these grants will incorporate diversity, equity, inclusion. How many times do we hear pathways recently? Pathways. Work to meet our nation's infrastructure workforce needs. Programs at community colleges, local partnerships. You heard that before? That's Joe Biden, 2 weeks ago. Chuck Robb started it. 1982, I believe the economic development is the single most important challenge for the remainder of the century. Education is the indispensable bridge to economic opportunity. Here, you know a learner is not a pupil or a student, by the way, so when you can guess, but stronger focus on deeper learning, new high school graduation requirements and career pathways, modernizing Virginia's standards of learning. Sorry guys, that was Northern. A learner is a factory model, literally, if you look up what a learner is. Virginia is for learners, is not Virginia is for students or education. 1986, Belial appointed a Commission of Excellence in Education, charged them with the responsibility of bringing him recommendations for specific actions to place Virginia in the top 10 states in the quality of education it offers. The Commission's report entitled Excellence in Education, A Plan for Virginia's Future. I was 6 years old. Okay, excellent, education, excellence. Okay, so we have to start looking at what's going on. Because my entire existence on this earth, it's been both parties together, same objective, just the overhang is the stuff that nobody's ever been able to get past. Well, I'm going to fan the smoke out of the air and expose it all day long.
Particularly skilled in building them. All kinds of lab schools, really cool. That melds with a huge ambition that I have, which is to take our community college system and our K through 12 system and kind of merge them a little bit, blur the lines, so that every student who is going to graduate from high school in Virginia has an opportunity, and I might suggest maybe even a requirement down the road, to graduate with a credential, an industry-recognized credential that they could go to work right away if they chose to, or they could go on to college if that's what they choose to do. But every
Okay, I'm sorry, but
for students who either want to design ships,
if you'll turn it down real quick.
Be,
so when he says, and possibly in the future require they graduate with a skill, that is called Stalin. The Soviets did that. It's called communism. Okay.
We're going to figure this out because we have to. And when you look at the opportunity to sell a new product or open a new facility or launch a new service, and if you don't have the right folks to do it, go find out how to do it. And you partner with a community college and you come up with a job training
This was
program.
2020 in Davos, Switzerland, 3 years before the
Service
prior
Alumni
Virginia Beach
Fairs.
video a month ago,
Literally,
and he's saying the same
business is gonna figure
thing.
this out because we have to. The economy's
Yes.
growing.
So
There's-
when are we going to
there's
start
jobs.
seeing that there's a problem?
We need to fill them.
McKinsey, by the way, Wellness Capital, that was his first employer. Look up Wellness Capital, how long they've been talking about wellness capital, as in making money off of wellness. But here, reskilling for a changing economy. This was also 2020. If you want a Virginia Ready Initiative, they're a wonderful nonprofit. Strengthening Virginia's economy by connecting people with training. So it was a simple connection. There are businesses that want to hire people and a massive amount of folks who are unemployed. How could we connect the two? So it just happened to be that now it's our children. So for the sake of time, 2001, there was an article written about the new definition of standards that had emerged. Proponents believe this will foster in students a greater desire to learn. They're talking about a work situation in real-world environments, workplace competencies, which is what we're living in now. But the result has been a narrower education that focuses on practical skills to the detriment of a broader academic education. The danger is that the new standards may elevate workplace competencies above essential academic knowledge. There is no academic knowledge being taught now. Every single thing from fuzzy new math to, oh, our kids can't do math. Well, data literacy, duh. That's the new math as standards of learning that just got done through the ringer. Not all education is vocational education. Schools should not be requiring or encouraged by federal funding to narrow their focus to emphasize workplace skills. This is what I get into. A lot of people will say, well, and not everybody's meant, I agree, not everybody's meant to go to college. But shrinking down education and giving the illusion that vocation, when you get to high school, if that's your free will choice, is wonderful. It should be more vocation. That's not what they're doing. That's not what they've been doing. They have deleted the knowledge, the education, the actual foundation. And it has all been planted with and using the data. What is the data doing? Does anybody ever stop to ask? If you know about data. If you don't, you definitely should. But, so this was a suggestion list, and I'm going to get to the point of who wrote the article in a second. So you should protect kindergarten through 12th grade curricula and standards from inordinate business influence. Look up VA Learns. Virginia Learns. You'll find out why Dominion Power is such a big deal and who they donate to. Because these are the people that are determining the competencies, Anthem, Genworth, that they need for their workforce. That's when business partnerships becomes a problem with schools. The businesses don't get to decide what goes into our children's heads. Rebuild a vibrant and voluntary vocational system for transition to work and careers for non-college bound students. What we're doing when we continue to allow this, like CTE all the time, anytime, nobody really needs to go to college because that's what they told my 6th grader. It's pointless. Why go? Is that they are now locked into one skill with no foundational job. How many of you had more than 2 or 3 jobs in your life? If you had been trained to do one skill from 6th grade, what happens when you're miserable as a welder or whatever it is at 25, 30? Where's Governor Youngkin to help you then? America's schools should not be required by their utilization of government funding to narrow the focus of practical skills for gainful employment. History, science, mathematics, literature. Guys, they're not even reading books. They're reading passages on their computers. What's frustrating is who wrote it. Imagine that, part of the Virginia Education Opportunity Alliance along with Middle Resolution. You would never hear these words out of their mouth now. Doesn't matter. You wrote it. Former General Secretary of Communist Party of China China needs to raise people's science awareness and education levels, train skilled and qualified personnel in order to achieve modernization goals. So real quick, I ask people, what is the point of education? Is it to get a job? No. People look at me, they're like, what do you mean it's not to get a job? The job is the outcome. And you have to start retraining the brain. The point is not to get a job. It is to learn how to build a life, a wonderful life where you have anything that you could want, not to get a job. Progressive educator John Dewey argued for standardized curriculum, a workforce filled with people of politically and socially correct attitudes. Guys, being politically correct got us here. There's tons of information out there about how being trained to be politically correct is what made us censor ourselves. And it's why when you start to speak truth, you find yourself apologizing a lot. Stop it. If you have truth in your brain and love in your heart, speak it. Unless, of course, you want our Attorney General to start warning you because he came from communist Cuba and he's now the disinformation board, if you haven't seen that newest article come out. So Dewey sought out such cooperative relationship, deliberately created communities dedicated to change, experimentation, and social reform. Academics were secondary. Dewey's own world build up forces whose natural effect is to undermine the importance of the uniqueness of family life. So people, I think I missed one. But so, do you know who had the first, where's Dana? Dana said, I want to hear all about Youngkin. Here's the thing, lab schools. Dewey, you cannot change what you know about Dewey because he had the first lab school in 1896. So when you see this, you can't go, but wait a minute, never mind. That is what's going on. People are going, but everything you know that John Dewey, even if you don't, but the progressive education, radical education is bad. You can't all of a sudden look and be like, but with the red vest on, it's different. No, it's not. No, it is not. Lab schools like this will support students' academic achievement and make learning more relevant and connected to the world outside the classroom. In this innovative model, it means experimentational. So put rat in the middle, lab rat school. That's what they are. They are not trained teachers with tiny children experimenting in education policy. That's what a lab school is. It's exactly what John Dewey did. See here, but the next generation of teachers will learn how to best in class instructors. So they're not teachers. You have to learn how to actually read what people write because they're really good at it. So Brave New World, we're totally in 1984, Brave New World, we're definitely there. The interesting thing about that is that Aldous Huxley's brother, Julian Huxley, was one of the founders, first head of UNESCO. That would be the United Nations. Make the two not make sense. Brave New World, UNESCO. The task before UNESCO is to help the emergence of a single world culture with its own philosophy, background of ideas, with its own broad purpose. I didn't put any preface material because I figured this crowd knew enough about UN and all. The United Nations is dominating everything. The sex standards they're doing everything. UNESCO is literally telling the Virginia Department of Education what to do. So just a little connection there. We're going to move on to pornography in our classrooms. These are books. There's two. Oh, wait, I'm going to read it to you twice.
Children, I will remind you, are reading.
There's little ears.
But right here, anus, both practical and pleasurable. This tight, flexible hole serves two purposes. This is the entrance to your bowels, the passageway to getting food, poop, out of your body. This opening is also chock full of sensitive nerves, making it primo erogenous zone for touching and penetrating.
Chesterfield County. 64,000
Apply
children.
broad pressure to the outside of your anus. Circle the butthole with your finger, pausing any time at a spot that feels extra good. And then it's got a picture of butt plugs. Dip just the tip of your finger inside, let your anus pull it in, and when it's ready, instead of forcing it.
Oh, Department of Education.
What does this look like? Okay. What this looks like in Chesterfield County is, this is from our high schools. Vulva, how girls should masturbate.
I don't care.
In this book, let's talk about it. Butt plugs, how to get anal pleasure. Chesterfield County in our high schools. This is clearly, if you walked up to a child on the street and handed this to them, you would be arrested for what? Many, and you'd be a felon, you could call the police, but this is allowed in our children's schools. And people want to talk about book banning. They're criminals, period. There's no law allowing it. A great place to research fantasies and kinks safely is on the internet. There's tons of people and communities out there who share your interests and have all kinds of advice. But depending your age and where you found out, porn can also be unethical and legal to watch. So do your research. There's pages and pages of this on positions. This one is in our middle schools. It's perfectly normal. The same thing. Sex positions, making love. This is all obscene under the law of Virginia. Who's going to do something?
So, if you go through Article 5, obscenity and related offenses, you read all the way through it, you'll find these things called exceptions to application of article. When you find something that says, nothing contained in this article shall be construed to apply to, that means nothing in the entire obscenity code can be applied to the purchase, distribution, exhibition, or loan of any book, magazine, or other printed manuscript material by any library, school, or institution of higher education supported by public appropriation. That means none of the obscenity code applies to public schools or public libraries. Listen, but the brain should tell you who in their right mind in the freest nation in the world would ever adopt that. The wonderful thing about the code is that you can go down here and you can see the dates that it's been changed. So I started digging. Turns out, do you know where it comes from? You know what that is? Alfred Kinsey. Alfred Kinsey and his pedophile molesters, yeah. His research, 42 states adopted these exemptions in the 70s from Alfred Kinsey's research. So when you want to go after something, that's how we're going to go after it. And I have it all ready to go. So anybody that wants to gather your crew here that's elected, because I dare Youngkin to even the full-fledged red vesters to not support getting rid of the exemptions. So this was the man and his fraudulent sex research about orgasms in babies, 5 months old, 11 months old, 2 years old. He was the one, education obscenity exemptions. It's called model penal. Yeah, pun intended. But it's model penal code if you want to look up. The frustrating thing is Dr. Judith Reisman has been at Liberty University, had been for her entire career. Everything that you could ever want to know about this man and what I'm talking about, but she died a year ago. But the information is still there. She fought all over the nation. You start to smell something's very wrong with this state when the people in this state are the professionals across the nation, but done nothing here. We're connected to DC. It's like Texas thinking they would be free of immigration issues. So obscenity was redefined and the exemption for prosecution added for institutions or persons. But this had a broad, not just the books. This is like sodomy, rape, age of consent. I mean, there's a list like of what these penal code did to what used to be considered like extremely illegal, which has led us to where now, where children can consent to their gender, and the age of consent is next, guys. NAMBLA is waiting just to kick the door in. It used to be the Miller three-pronged test. It was modified. But here's the thing: is that obscenity is not protected at all by the First Amendment. So if we get the exemptions removed with fact, not debate. I'm not talking about your feelings anymore. I don't care how you feel you want to have these, but I don't care what you feel. Bill of Rights, United States, freest country in the world. We're not going to violate the Constitution anymore. So if we get the exemptions removed, Supreme Court has already sided with those producing content over those offended with the content because of misapplication of the First Amendment. It's all laid out there already to have them gone. Everybody's just done playing whack-a-mole. I'm going to read one book at every school board meeting. So sodomy, bestiality, all that stuff went out the door as being illegal. Rape by force, statutory, incest, all these laws changed. Prostitution, age, statutory rape. But here's the thing, ALEC. I know I'll give you a list after I'm done, but John McGuire's a member of ALEC. There's plenty. In 2004, they did a legislative push. I'll give you a list of everybody who's a member of ALEC with this information about the push because they have no excuse. Get real. This would be the comprehensive sexuality education that just came through Norfolk. We don't have comprehensive sex ed law. This is the stuff that makes California mad. We are California. We backdoor everything. How is this coming in? Social emotional learning. So you want your 12 and 13-year-old, Brittany's girlfriend wants to have oral sex with her, so they have to get up and role play consent. Will and Todd, you have to get up and role play, literally, in front of the class. 8th grade, 7th grade. 2 8th grade boys, your son and his best friend, have to get up and role play. Will just found out his family is planning on moving before he enters high school. They both enjoy the sexual part of their relationship, which up to now has been kissing and touching. So here, that's the thing, is that in teaching children, you're creating victimizers because you're teaching them how to coerce consent. That's what they're doing. Do you think 2nd graders giving them oral sex in Portsmouth is normal? It's coming from somewhere. It's not in the water. And I'm so tired of hearing Governor Youngkin that you must adopt the dignity policy. No, you don't. If you were the 90% that didn't do it the first time, why all of a sudden do you have to do it the second? And do you even know what it says? Because the first version, if you didn't know there was a first version in September that came out, actually had properly written, Troxel v. Granville, parents informed, boom, end the conversation. Had bathrooms, properly done, boom, 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 boom. So then you get to the second one. Supreme Court, this requirement is, of course, subject to laws. Here's the thing, guys. Virginia code can never override federal constitutional common law. And having to explain this to people, so right there, the requirement is, of course, subject to laws. No, federal law, which is common law, becomes constitutional law. That's how parental rights got there in the actual Constitution. 100 years of Supreme Court cases, Parham v. J.R., Troxel v. Granville, sisters, I mean, it goes on and on. That's how common law, but you can't understand common law with Constitution without common law. So no, a for a state code can never come after Supreme Court law. Because what they did right here was, this requirement is subject to the laws that prohibit disclosure of information to parents in certain circumstances, including, for example, prohibiting parental contact where student is at imminent risk of suicide to parental abuse and neglect. They all claim they're going to be abused if you tell my parents and I'm suicidal, if you've never watched a school. Yeah, says who? The child. It eliminates parents again. Yes. No, is that it, so? This is one because they all say that they're suicidal and they're going to get abused. If your child says it's your no. Correct. 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 And that's why is that he's about to sit at his banquet of consequences because no, it's 14th Amendment due process. Boom, like I'm filling it out. I mean, and it is Youngkin didn't write it, but he's allowing it. It's called mobocracy. When you allow chaos to continue like this, it's actually a form of tyranny. And then here, schools to serve is that the one thing you have to understand is right here. Straight children will have to opt out. Under the old policy, they could find a bathroom wherever they wanted. What does that look like? And why are we applauding a governor on what he ran on that now our straight children have to opt out? And then ask yourself, what happened between here, see, not here, here, the ACLU, yet again, the J-Car hearing, pandered the ACLU, that's what happened. But to anybody, when Governor Youngkin or them are saying, you have to. No, you don't. I live in a county, I've known this stuff for 2 years now. Mark Herring's assistant AG, July of 2021. There's no enforcement mechanism within the model policy statute, meaning there's no punishment for a school board if they fail to pass the inclusive policy. So I'm telling my school board, don't do it. Because what is it going to look like? Excuse me, it's time for all straight children to line up in the hallway to go to the bathroom. There's too many questions left. And to think that you can just dismantle what the damage has been done in a policy, it gives parents the false sense of security when they've never actually read it. Will the state come after the school board's funding if they don't pass these policies? No. So Lisa Coons here, good God, bless her heart, codified in the statute and therefore is the law of the land. No, ma'am, the only law of the land is the Constitution of the United States. I read this, and anybody that has to come into my state and quote James Lane, who was Northam's, is dumb, first of all. But I had my mind blown when she literally used the word law of the land. First of all, it was a legislation handed to develop a model policy. They did such. But listen to his words.
There was a specific bill that was passed by the General Assembly in the previous General Assembly and signed by the previous governor that made it very clear that when it came to the model policies for transgender children, the governor is to write model policies and the local school boards are to adopt policies consistent with the model policy. It's a very different approach in what the constitutionally historical approach has been between state government and local governments. And that's why the Attorney General didn't come out last.
Okay, is there any other way than constitutionally done? No, there's not. Like, there's no, we're going to do this a little more creatively than the normal constitutionally way. No, the answer is no. There's no other way. It's unconstitutional is what he just said. But then the governor does not write anything. The law literally says the Department of Education is to create model policies. And I was like, so that could just be him being dumb. But the fact that, we're just going to kind of do it a little bit differently than the constitutionally. But what you should have heard, different than the constitutionally way, the state governs the localities. Because Virginia is very different. And I'm working with 7 school boards to reclaim your autonomy. That means standards of learning. That means you take back what your specific community needs. So this here, 1-240.1, we need to stop saying that because, like I said, that's not where your parental rights come from. They come from God, but on top of that, you have to understand where they come from the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. They're in that 3 specific order. That liberty does not come before life. Happiness does not come before liberty. They are in that order. That is why abortion. The life does not come over the liberty of the mother or her happiness. Life. Your children are a product of your what? They are born of my body. They are an extension of my body. It's not saying I own them, which is what you just want to own your child. No, they are an extension of my body. I gave birth to them. You cut off my arm. You hurt me. They are an extension. That is life. That is Declaration of Independence. It is in the Constitution. The Bill of Rights, like 6 of them, are your parental rights are protected. And then there's 100 years of Supreme Court case. Because if they came for your guns and took your guns, what would happen? Then what is the difference between sending your children, your biological products that you love, into government schools for 8 hours a day and having them tell you that you can't have nothing to say and you have to deal with it and you keep doing it? It baffles me. And I'm not here to disrespect anybody because, but I had to make the choice myself for my 2 daughters, and I never looked back. It is hard. And being a parent, I don't know who got the memo that ever said it was going to be easy. But we've all gotten, it's this thing called we just got used to sending them, and we thought it was good for a long time until we found out it wasn't. And then once it became not good anymore, what do? Do something. Become a sand in the gear. Learn how to opt out. Have your people running for school board, because I'm working with a bunch of them. First, if every parent threw 1 grain of sand for each child with opt-outs, follow the law, that wheel would, real quick. The power of the opt-out is what kept us from vaccine passports. The 7 that didn't, the 1 in 7 that didn't get the jab, kept us from vaccine passports. It's the power of no. We're not doing this anymore. And these are our children who are all getting it injected into their brain in every curriculum. Because you take you take queer theory, critical race theory. Kim, do you have those handouts? Okay, this just for y'all to look at. This is a civics class in 8th grade in Chesterfield County. This is a great example of social emotional learning being the delivery system for socialism. You've got transgender in there. You've got opinions about jails and if Hispanics spend too much time in jails. So and think about when you see a lesson like that, what that lesson looked like. And then it says, to what degree do whites have more privilege over blacks? Not a question. To what degree? That is critical race theory. That is not even a question about it. And so when you see stuff like that, that is an assignment, a quiz. Think about the lesson that you don't know about that led to that assignment. And then my other advice, get a parent portal. Canvas, Schoolology, whatever, on your school division webpage, get a parent portal. Go in, tell people, everybody, get a parent portal, because you can at least start to see, and write them, and don't even tell them why. Say, I would like to make an appointment with my child's counselor, who I have now opted them out of from ever talking to. Because here's the thing, guys, social workers are in our schools. If they have access to your child, you're the worst mother ever because your 7-year-old, you took her iPad that morning. If you don't think that social worker and CPS is going to be all up in your life like this, you're not keeping them from your child for negative reasons. You're keeping them to keep your family safe because these are children who don't understand the words coming out of their mouths or how they're going to affect anybody. So, with that, I will make sure everybody has a card, and Dana knows how to find me all the time. This is what I do. But legislation is written. I know Warren has had another teacher on child assault. You know that in 20 years, only 200 teachers for rape or physical assault have lost their licenses in the state of Virginia? Chesterfield. But think about how many of you heard around here in just say the last couple of years. Because I went and I pulled from the entire state, and the amount of whether it's special education, small children, dragged out of their wheelchairs, hot sauce poured down their throats. The problem is the schools report to CPS, not to the authorities. It's called passing the trash. It's called Chesterfield County. It's called everywhere because they would rather let one resign, quietly move counties. I have had 4 teachers this year alone contact me with incidences like that. They are allowed to resign and move counties. They work in 3 divisions on an average having assaulted 73 children by the time they're caught. Passing the trash is what it's called. So, and Virginia is one of the only states that does not criminalize teacher on child, but they stand in loco parentis as their guardian. You have to remember that. How come? Because they took it from us and nobody's ever challenged it. So everybody I talk to that's running for office, you need to remove in loco parentis. You took it from us. Because here's the thing, you don't have rights without responsibilities. So if what you teach my child causes my child to die, you have the responsibility of a parent. If what you teach my child causes my child to become a drug addict or whatever, is that you don't get to have the right of a parent to do whatever you want without the responsibility. No, this is America. That's not how that works. Why aren't you running for office? You don't want to see me in office. Like,
she's all over the state.
I've been asked why. Well, because I can do more, because I'm not one of those people that's like, I know it's bigger than my county. I applaud the people that are. I think it's wonderful. But understanding how education policy works, like the first 6 months I started doing this, I was like, this is bigger than just my county. And then I was like, oh my God, it's bigger than that. Yes, it is my, what do you do for a living? What I do for a living, but God pays me every day in a million different ways. And I have an amazing husband who makes this possible. But is every day God gets me up, kicks me in the butt, get going. Like, it's not a choice anymore. Yes.
Have you thought of the fact that any law that is put into effect or that abrogates or harms our rights as a constitution, we don't have to go through all of that.
Correct.
We have the right to go right to our Supreme Court.
Yes.
And we have the right to have that Supreme Court. But what we need to do is you can't do it on your own.
That is what I was going to say, is I have thought of all of this. I know about 14th Amendment. I know about conspiracy against rights. I know about civil rights 1983. There's one of me. And the thing is that I have yet to have any parent, no matter how eyes wide open, who is willing to, I have it built from the bottom up, the entire case, because I could become, if I went and took the bar, an actual attorney. But it is, I have the whole thing built. But paying for an attorney, when you're one mother, I can have the whole thing built. I could go argue it in court in case but it's like, I'm only one person. So we can talk, and like anybody that wants to actually man up and do something for these kids, then I have it built. Like, I know all about the law and stuff, but is that I'm trying to do 800 things and keep 50 balls.
Our judges are so corrupt. Probably the best way to do this that I can see is that you have the paperwork, submitting it into the laws and where it violates, what laws it violates, who's been harmed
Yep.
by it, and even you can do a form or
I even have the NSBA and the Virginia School Board Association with the Association of School Board Attorneys acknowledging the fact that yes, it does, Civil Rights 1983 does apply to school boards.
you really need to take it, that type of a package, and submit it to the Supreme Court and have them be the ones.
I am, yeah. No, that's exactly. This is my downtime. This is the only event I have planned. This is like because it's legislative season, so that's definitely on my radar.
Richmond on Tuesday at 10 o'clock is the Supreme Court meeting where judges from all over the county will be there.
Right, I'm in Richmond, so around near there, and my kids. Okay, I'll get your number. Okay, all right. Anybody else? All right, my girl Kimberly. Oh, yes.
Have you or do you have on your radar workshops where we can come and go through this information you got thrown at us comes like a buzzsaw?
And that's like a 8th slowdown version. Here's the thing is that I would love to is that we have had those. You guys call me, and I can get 15 parents. I will do a free Zoom call and we can cover whatever portion of your specific curriculum. Like I will, it's much easier. Like if you can guarantee, I will take an hour a week and sit down and we can start to break things down for free. If you can just get the people, I'll make the time. It's like, that's how, is it, we don't even have to rent a space or anything. Like, okay, what do you guys want to talk about? And I go into your division stuff, I pull it out, I look at what you are, what you're not doing, the law, what is and that's what I do. And all I need is people to care, and I will make the time. Okay.